what's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. I'm joined by my brother, as always, Austin Duncan. What's up, dude? How you doing? Welcome to episode 7.
Oh, dude, pumped. We just hit 70 subscribers on YouTube. Very happy to see, people supporting this. It's the easiest way to support us, and I'd love to kind of build more of a community. So if you want to give us some of your opinions in the comments below, we can chat through. We obviously review all of them and see everything. So yeah, no, I want to hear more from the people that are watching us, and I can't thank you enough for doing so. So
yeah, man, we're over 400 followers on Instagram. We've got the 70 subscribers on YouTube. And the thing that we were talking about earlier, we were texting about, is that has happened naturally. Like there are obviously services out there where you can pay for subscribers, you can pay for Instagram followers, and this has all happened naturally. So the idea that there are at least 70 people out there who want to listen to what we have to say on a weekly basis is pretty exciting for us, and not necessarily something that we really imagined we would be doing. Or, we were obviously hopeful that we would get 70 subscribers, but it's a lot of fun. We're obviously enjoying doing this. We are the only podcast out there that's bringing you Michael Myers content, Halloween content every single week. So we're going to keep throwing things at you. And yeah, if you like what you see, definitely let us know in the comments. Shoot us a message on Instagram, whatever it might be. But we've got a really fun episode lined up for you. This episode, again, this is episode 7. If you've not had an opportunity to listen to the previous episodes, definitely check that out. Last week, we had an awesome episode with Dominic, who is the director of Halloween Stocks, a new fan film dedicated to the Halloween series. It's a fantastic interview, and it's just been a lot of fun. So this episode, we are going to be talking a little bit about the different ideas, or some different ideas that we have for ways that they could turn the Halloween franchise into a television series, to get away from the movie ideas and to move closer to maybe some of the things that have been done recently with Bates Motel, the Scream series. I know there's a Friday the 13th television series that's coming out. And so we're going to be throwing some ideas out there as to, what we could do, or some ideas of what they could do based on just some thoughts that we've had as major fans of this series. But before we get into this, and Austin doesn't even know this, but I've got a little surprise for him. I kind of wanted to kick off this episode and do something a little bit different, a fun little game. And I was going to ask him 5 Halloween questions, or 5 questions that are related to Halloween, and just get your first thoughts on them. Sort of a would you rather type game. So
okay.
Again, you didn't even know we were going to do this, but we're going to start the episode off this way with a little bit of a quiz. So here we go.
Right, I'm ready.
Here's the first one. Would you rather have another sequel where Busta Rhymes is back and reprises the role of Freddy, and he uses kung fu to kick Michael's ass again? Or would you rather have Tommy Doyle back in a movie played by Michael Anthony Hall, where every 5 minutes you have to hear "Evil Dies Tonight"?
Oh man, this one is so easy. First of all, I just heard a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, but I'm pretty sure it's true, that there was either Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends was supposed to have Busta Rhymes show up at some point.
Oh God.
I know. That being said, I'll take Busta Kung Fu over the Evil Dies Tonight cheesy ass writing, even though, like, I don't know, I hate the fact that Michael's getting bested by like somebody who's going like, what? Like, I just can't. Right. I can't do the Evil Dies Tonight and the overacting of Halloween Kills with Tommy Doyle. So that's my answer. Give me Busta.
Okay. All right. That's easy enough. All right. Would you rather be stabbed to the wall like Bob, or would you rather be choked with a phone like Linda? By Michael, obviously.
I think stabbed to the wall. I'm kind of a hefty boy, so if Michael can lift me up and stab me, that's impressive on his end. And I think even in my death, I would recognize that's an athletic feat right there. So I'm gonna go with that.
Okay. All right. Very good. So the next one, and I just lost my place here in my notes, so bear with me for one moment. So, would you rather never see Halloween 1978 again, but get a new Halloween movie every year, or would you rather never get another Halloween movie, but only be able to watch Halloween 1978?
Oh man, that is a tough one. Because I mean, like we both said, 78's our favorite, and I think that's probably the majority of the fandom. But man, it would be tough not to watch it again. But I think like just based on the last whatever 6 years or whatever it's been of the hype of the David Gordon Green trilogy, like it's been so fun to just like on a brother alone level, like you and I have texted so much about this new trilogy, and just like the hype around it has been so much fun. I think it's tough, but I think as long as I have the memory of 1978, and I've seen that movie enough times now where I can pretty much recite it, it's kind of burned into my mind. I think I would have to go with a new one every single year, just to see what they're going to do next, and you know, maybe there would be burnout. I'm sure there would be, but yeah, well, who would I be? Our podcast is called Halloween Lives. We can't let it die. So yeah, I'm going to go with that one.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And the last one. This is not a would you rather, but it is a question. So Michael Myers is about to break into your room that you're in right now.
Cool.
Your only weapon is whatever is on your right-hand side. What do you have? And you got to show it to us.
All right. Well, I don't think I do much damage, but I do have a pack of blueberry bagels right here. And I don't think maybe I could fight Michael Myers with it, but I think maybe I could coax him into a good meal. I've got some strawberry cream cheese. It's kind of a weird blend of flavors, but you know, maybe that would throw Mike off a little bit, and we'll see.
Dude, why do you have bagels in your room? Like
I work from home.
A bag of bagels.
It's a cheap, easy meal, man. At any time that you got to have it ready.
Man, all right. Well, that's I apologize because you're gonna definitely die. I mean, Michael's gonna kill you if that's all that you have is a bag of bagels.
I have like
yourself, but
I have a butter knife that I use to spread the cream cheese. So I guess maybe that would be a better weapon. But yeah, no, pretty much I'm dead no matter what.
Yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
How were my answers? Like, would you have done anything differently?
No, I think, really the one that for me, I agree with you about the Busta Rhymes thing versus the Evil Dies Tonight. I just hated that whole line and concept, and just that overdoing that line over and over and over again. I think the biggest one is obviously, would I rather have only be able to watch 78 for the rest of my life and never get another sequel, or would I rather get a new sequel every year and never be able to watch 78? And I probably agree with you. As much as I love 78, as much as it's my favorite horror movie, it's my favorite movie in general. But I think the idea to get, maybe there's an opportunity that somebody hits the next one out of the park, or one, 3 or 4 down the road, they hit them out of the park, and they create the new greatest Halloween movie ever made. So I agree. And I'm kind of a sucker for anything new, Michael Myers, anything. So I would have to agree with you, but it's fun to get those answers. I don't even have, I can't even give you something that I could defend myself with. I've got a box that I better not show that. I probably shouldn't have showed that side. I've got a box here that's going to be part of an unboxing that we do relatively soon. And we're not going to obviously focus on this tonight, but I am going to be doing, or we are going to be doing, the ultimate Michael Myers unboxing. I've got new coveralls, legit coveralls from Creepy Customs. I have the accurate 1978 Vietnam era jungle boots that Michael Myers wore, Nick Castle wore in 78. I have the Trick or Treat Studios 78 knife. That's what I just held up here. And then just recently, within the last few days here, I actually purchased my own NAG Halloween Michael Myers mask. So we're going to do the ultimate unboxing video here coming up. But yeah, I've got a box. So your bagels might actually be better off. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're both pretty screwed.
Yeah, we're in deep shit.
But yeah, no,
cool.
I'm super pumped for that. I'm going to live vicariously through you, because that is seriously like the coolest setup to like just kind of unbox. And you are like 99, you're in the top tier of like people who have built up their Michael Myers suits. No, it's going to be really cool. I can't wait for it. And that video, I'm going to be recording it, so I'm sure people are going to hear me being like, "Holy shit!" the entire time. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. So I hope you
stop breathing so heavy into your mic. Like, it's weird.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, good answer those questions. Good job on the little surprise pop quiz. I think you answered them well. We are going to transition now to the main focus of this show, which is, as I already mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Halloween TV series and what that could look like if they took that opportunity and went down that road. One of the things that you and I have spoken about is that, doing a TV series it's a little bit outside the box, right? I mean, but there has been some success stories with those, and I think Bates Motel is probably the example of that, or at least the highest example, where it was a very popular, very well done TV show, and if they wanted to take a break from movies for a while, if they wanted to let people forget about the fact that they just put Michael into a freaking meat grinder and you can pick him up at your local grocery store in the meat section, that is a way that they could potentially do it, is to go to a TV series where it sort of resets and reboots the series just a little bit. And Austin and I came up with 5 different ideas for how they could do that. And we're going to just go through them, not really in any specific order, not our worst to best or best to worst. We're just going to go through them and throw some ideas out there. As Austin mentioned, obviously, if you are as big of a fan of the series as we are, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you guys think of not only our ideas, but do you have an idea for what they could do? And who knows, maybe Malik is watching and he might go, hey, that's a hell of an idea. So we're going to rock with number 1. And that would be a prequel to the events of 1963 and the murder of Judith Myers. So really a very, very, very Bates Motel-esque as far as just a lot of character development, the backstory. You could have it where, the Myers family moves to Haddonfield. You could, depending on if you wanted to go with the idea that Laurie and Michael are siblings, you could have that whole adoption thing going on with Laurie being a baby. But obviously, again, a lot of character development and buildup to expand on who these people really were, because outside of 1978, we really know nothing about Judith. We know nothing about Michael's parents. So I think to have some of that and to maybe just see what Michael was like, start out with Michael when he's like 2 or 3, and some of the things that are going on that are weird, and you can just sort of see these signs, very similar to Bates Motel, how you just witness this family sort of crumbling and just the different nuances and things that were going on. So what's your thoughts on this idea?
So here's what I'll say is, like, me personally, I'm not a huge let's explore Michael's background and like explain why he is the way he is. But I will say that, like, we've seen this done with the Rob Zombie first movie. And I think there's a huge audience. First of all, even though I prefer the no real background to Michael, I'd absolutely watch every episode of this. Right. if you sort of jump that hurdle, then you open up to sort of this big open world of what kind of made Michael the way he is, or what, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Michael descending into madness. I mean, you can have those hints throughout the show, but I think one of the things that the new trilogy did really well is explain that maybe Haddonfield played a part in this as well. And So it'd be cool to kind of explore that again. Like you're saying, we know nothing, absolutely nothing about the parents of Michael Myers. And yeah, you bring Judith into the mix and start to see how the whole story builds up into that. And I would love to not do it in present day, like you're saying, do it back in 63 or before 63. So that way you still get all the vibe of that original. So that way, even though you don't necessarily have to consider it canon to the original series, you could watch it and it could lead right up into it. If the show turns out wonderful, I think a lot of people would put that in their head as the truth, as scripture in the Halloween universe. I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, and imagine, I'm just, as you're talking here, I'm picturing in my own head of what that could potentially look like, and imagine having the Myers house be almost a character in the show in a way where the Myers family moves into the Myers house when it's still a nice house. The family lives there. Again, very similar to Bates Motel and how we saw the house and the hotel be a character in itself. And you could do that because I think the Myers house, I think we often forget how great of a character the Myers house is. It's especially in 1978, we see this very spooky, very ominous house that has sort of developed this reputation in the town as being the spook house, and the house where all the kids go and they ring the doorbell, or they try to get a peek inside at the boogeyman's house. I love that idea. And I think one thing that we've talked about as well with Halloween Kills, when they brought the Myers house back into it in the later with the Big John, Little John characters, and sort of refresh the life of the house. I love that. So I think if there'd be a way to bring the house into the series in some capacity, maybe it is the Myers family before, when they were living in Chicago, it doesn't matter, right? And then they're moving to the suburbs and they buy this house, and whatever it is. I mean, there could be even some supernatural elements if you wanted to. I agree with you 100% that you have to be careful with how much you explore the backstory, because you can start to strip away that mystery, which you and I both love, and I think most of the fans love. However, I think if it's done correctly and could fill in some of the gaps without giving away too much, I think that would be the way to do it. And you would have to have somebody write this and direct this who would be willing to do that, to not necessarily show all their cards, but to give a little bit of a preview maybe of what's to come and what is leading into what we know now as the Halloween franchise.
And I think I think the true purist Halloween fans are going to be this way, where please don't give us any, explanation. But at the same time, I think the overall population who watches the Halloween movies would probably have a general interest in like what made Michael the way that he is. I think the series kind of begs that question, and we enjoy it unanswered. But I think for the average consumer, I think that would be an interesting premise. So it would be something that, again, we'd have to kind of get over that hurdle. But once you accept that, yeah, it's gonna kind of reveal what's in the box a little bit more. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And like you're saying, if they have somebody who's writing it that's respectful of the themes of the first few movies and the newer movies as well. Yeah, absolutely. I do agree, though. I think you would have to do the Laurie as the sister thing. I think that would be a great plot point in a show like that.
Right. Yeah. You would have to somehow introduce her character, because everybody just knows Laurie Strode does play a part in this. And I don't think you could have it be like she was the neighbor girl, or, somehow the Myers knew the Strodes and, whatever. I mean, I suppose there'd be an angle there that you could potentially come up with, but that would be much easier to play that angle of, she was a Myers, she was a Myers, then eventually is adopted by the Strodes. So that would be the way to go. But I think conversely, so opposite of that, the next idea would be to have a show. So the original idea that we just talked about would be would essentially end in 1963. So the night, everything would lead up to the death of Judith Myers, and maybe that would be how the final episode or the second to last episode would be Judith getting killed by Michael. and then launching that story into what we know as the 1978 film. To continue on with that idea, another idea would be to have it cover everything that happens between 1963 and 1978. So, have it cover the Michael Myers saga of him being at Smith's Grove. And, when we interviewed Matt Arts from Halloween Daily News, we talked about this a little bit and the idea of doing a show similar to this. And he had a really great idea that I, when he was talking about it, I was like, hell yeah, that would be awesome. And that was that, Michael is a character in this, but he's not a main character. He's yes, the show is about what has happened to him and to his family, but you're really only seeing him in a few shots throughout the series. I think Matt talked about Michael sitting in a corner, and, Michael has already adopted this sort of mute stage where he's not talking. He's not speaking to anybody, but you would have the introduction of Dr. Loomis and bringing that to the table and watching Dr. Loomis try to investigate what happened and why Michael is the way that he is, eventually coming to the conclusion that he is purely and simply evil, as he says in 1978.
Right. Yeah, no, I think this would be a lot of fun. I think it would be cool, again, to put Michael back at that point in the mid 70s or early 70s, and sort of explore, I guess, how far we've come in the way that, we treat mental health patients. If you want to set it up in the horror way, the caretakers and the Smith's Grove itself can be almost as terrifying as some of the inmates in there, and patients. But yeah, no, I think this would be a really fun show. As long as you treat Michael as sort of this, like, even the people in the Smith's Grove know, like, we don't mess with Michael. Like, nobody talks to him. Nobody gets in his way. He's sort of, he doesn't have like a kingpin vibe, but he's nobody wants to be around. No, everybody's afraid. Even the baddest of the bad.
Yeah, I love that, especially even if you explored that as an idea when he was a kid. If you could almost take it where you have Michael as a 6-year-old in season 1, and then in season 2 he's maybe 10. Season 3 he's 15. Season 4 he's getting close to that age of 21 when he escaped. So you'd actually have different characters, or different actors, I should say, play Michael throughout that. But I love that idea, what you just said about, like, the patients, the other patients that are in Smith's Grove with Michael, feeling like there's something off with this kid. Even as a 6-year-old boy, you have the grown ass badass adult that is, make up some story. He's some homicidal maniac who murdered 30 people, but he doesn't go anywhere near that kid because there's something about that kid that gives him really bad vibes. And you could even explore. Really, the story would be so moldable at that point. Yep. You could create whatever you wanted to. Maybe Michael, similar to to Rob Zombie's film, maybe Michael did kill more people in Smith's Grove. Maybe there were a few interactions that he had with people that he either injured them or killed them. Staff, patients, whatever it might be. And then I think you could also, again, explore that sort of supernatural idea. And maybe that would just come naturally with the fear of this child. And again, having Sam Loomis, Dr. Loomis, be introduced in the show, and have him start out trying to treat this young boy as just an average, typical patient, where he obviously had this tragedy happen to him, and Loomis is set on fixing this kid, rehabilitating this kid, to get this kid, by the time maybe he's 18 years old, to reintroduce him to society. But then over time and over the years, he starts to realize, holy shit, this is not your average patient. This is not your average kid. And again, growing that idea that Loomis believes that Michael is, there's something off with him, and he is actually truly evil.
Yeah, and I think that's one of and I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast. I think that's one of the most interesting parts about Loomis is he's supposed to be this guy who can diagnose anything.
Right.
And it's kind of like going to the doctor for a checkup, and he tells you, well, you've got a hex, you've got a curse. Like you would never expect this sort of like otherworldly explanation for something that you know you want, and it would be cool to see him want to explain it away, but just over time there's no explaining what Michael is.
Right.
I'd also like to see, just as we were talking about, the last season alone could focus on the break or the escape. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really cool. And it's something that we don't really know how it happened in the 1978 movie. You could obviously show that Michael played a massive part in that. And then to focus on the characters that you've built a relationship with over the show, to have like sort of the last season just be their escape and the moments that followed that. Because that is kind of a underappreciated, scary scene of the original, is Loomis pulling into the sanitarium, and there's all these people on the loose, and yes, Michael Myers is the biggest threat, but there's plenty of other threats walking around, and I think that was a really cool scene, and it would be cool to explore that even more.
I'll be honest with you. I think in my mind that is probably the scariest scene for me in all of Halloween 78, because put yourself in that position, right? You're driving up to this sanitarium and it's pouring rain out. You can hardly see what's going on. Windshield wipers going back and forth. Your headlights come into the area and there's all these people wearing their, the white outfits or whatever they were wearing, the sort of robes or, whatever they're wearing. That'd be scary as shit, dude. Like, I want nothing to do with that idea. Like, I would have been like, well, I'm going in reverse. We're going to go that way. We'll let this go another day, and yeah, I think that was a terrifying scene. And that would be a great, like you said, that would be a great way, maybe that last episode leading into that. And maybe you do explore like an idea that either an inmate is responsible for getting Michael out, or maybe an inmate, a patient, or maybe a staff member is kind of bringing that Sartain idea to it, that the staff member wanted Michael out, or maybe it was just total coincidence and Michael was smart enough and he got keys off of a security guard after killing him, and he was able to get everybody out and escape. But I think it would be fun, definitely a fun way to explore that backstory, and there'd be a lot of different avenues that they could go down there. So that's our second idea. So the third idea is to explore the idea of the Cult of Thorn a little bit deeper. Now, this is probably the most unlikely to happen, just simply because the Cult of Thorn idea is not a popular idea amongst most Halloween fans, myself included. I do appreciate Part 6. It's one of my more favorite of the series, but there's so much more to it that I outside of just the Cult of Thorn idea that makes me love that. But I do think that there would be an opportunity here if you really wanted to take a deep dive into the Cult of Thorn theory. You certainly could. And, you brought up something talking about, I think that first idea, you had talked about Haddonfield, and maybe Haddonfield has more to do with the backstory of Michael. Well, clearly in Part 6, we find that out, that there is this cult out there. There's people who live in the town who are part of this cult. And, maybe that's the idea you explore. And you could even take it back to some flashback scenes back to, 900 AD, right? Or whatever it might be, where you're building in that idea of this ancient cult that existed, and you're doing these flashbacks between current day and then what happened, back when this cult was created back, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, whatever it was, and explore those ideas. So what's your thought on exploring the idea of the Cult of Thorn?
So I agree that it's probably the least likely, because the idea hasn't been touched for 30 years. But what really excited me was when you were talking about the flashbacks. I think it would be really cool. No other really scenario allows you to put Michael Myers in medieval times. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have it as Michael Myers, but you have it as they're building the shape for their cult, and Michael Myers was just one in a long line of these evil beings. I think it allows you to kind of, I mean, I've been watching Game of Thrones, and I know you aren't a huge fan of that show, but there is a character called the Mountain who I was just describing is kind of the Michael Myers of that show. And it is sort of a scary idea to put Michael in different timelines, or the idea of the shape, if you want to go with that changing shape sort of vibe. I think it would be a really cool show. I think it would be a really like niche show. They would have to knock it out of the park in season 1 to keep it going. But I think the premise is interesting enough that I think, there's definitely something there.
Yeah, and as you're talking about this, like I'm starting to run ideas in my head, and you really could stick very similarly to the way the novel, the 1978 novel, is written, where they explore the backstory to Michael and the curse a little bit, in the sense that, hey, this was a druid curse that started, or this was the Samhain, Samhain as it's often called, but Samhain, and how there was this curse that was almost essentially put on not necessarily the family, but just a certain group of people. And they talk about in the novel how Michael's grandpa heard voices at basically a Halloween dance, and he killed 2 people. He shot and killed 2 people. And you could almost, depending on how you did it, you could either do flashbacks, or you could set it up where, yeah, maybe the show does start in 900 AD, and you're going back to this druid curse. And I'm just making that up because I don't know when the hell Samhain was created. Right, it doesn't matter. You go back to that era, and maybe there's a child in that village who is Michael Myers. And then, much like It, in a way, Stephen King's It, that's every 27 years, but maybe this isn't every 27 years. Maybe this is every 150 years. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
But you have different characters that take on that shape, as you talked about, right? That the taking shape, or the moving of the shape throughout the franchise, and what that could have looked like. So I think there is something there. As we mentioned, I think this is the least likely idea, but it could be really cool. And depending on how it was done, I think it would be one of those shows that true, like, die-hard fans like you and I would probably dig. But if they were just trying to hit the mainstream audience and pull them in, I don't know. That might be pretty tough to do. You'd almost be better off doing a series like that and not having it be even associated with Halloween and Michael Myers, where it's just this ancient curse that follows people, and it moves from person to person, or whatever that is. And these different, just different adaptions of the story. But I think it could be cool. I think there could be a lot of opportunity to, again, take that story in different ways, lay a little bit of the foundation, the backstory from Michael Myers, and then, end the series essentially with Michael at 6 years old on Halloween night in 1963. And the curse hits him, or takes over him, or possesses him, or whatever it might be.
Right. And one thing as well is this could get kind of treated like an anthology series, sort of like what John Carpenter intended with the original. And I'm totally down for that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're down for anything Michael Myers, but we're also being realistic about the idea of what other people would want to see. The next idea is an idea that would really be focused on Dr. Loomis as the main character of this series, and following him. Maybe it depends. You could do this several different ways, but you could either follow him, as we mentioned, obviously from 1963 to 1978, or maybe you follow him at different points throughout his life, from 1963 or 64 or 65, whenever it was that he became Michael's doctor, all the way through his death, and have him be played by different people, and almost follow him around throughout his life in a way where, maybe in the first few episodes he's 40 years old, or not the first few episodes, but the first season or two, maybe he's 40, 41 years old. And then the second season he's 60 years old, and we've jumped ahead, and then so on and so forth, all the way up to his life, or all the way up to his death, and just following him through his life. it could be another cool way to explore the series and also tie in the movies, because you could obviously have the events of 1963, the events of 1978, including what would have been Halloween 2 taking place on October 31st, 1978, but then jump ahead to 1988 when Danielle Harris's character is introduced as Jamie Lloyd, and following what happened in between 78 and 88, as Michael is, depending on what series you follow or what avenues you follow, Michael is supposedly burned up and he's in this hospital, but you could do it that way, and then also introduce some of the timelines or the characters from the movies in this as you go through this series.
Yeah, I think this is the one that I would want the most. I think it would be so fun to again explore the change in Loomis and kind of show that though Michael didn't kill Loomis, in those films leading up to his actual death, he was probably the greatest victim of Michael Myers throughout that story. He really, by the end of his story, he is a crazy old man who is obsessed with Michael Myers, and I think to start off the show with a guy who's got a good head on his shoulders and maybe doesn't even believe in evil or anything like that, just to see that build up and sort of descent into madness, I think that would be a show or a film even that I would be incredibly down to watch. And I agree. Yeah. Follow him. You can't just have a linear story where there's, however many seasons in between 6 and 21. But to kind of jump around and then even follow him into the main Halloween timeline in between movies or as things go on. The show could really pick up once Michael breaks out of Smith's Grove, and then you're following your character who maybe before it was sort of a doctor show, it had a lot of like psychological elements to it, to now it's like a manhunt show.
Right.
And I think it would really be cool to watch a character switch into that role. I would love a Dr. Loomis series. I think that is like my main goal. It's just a question of, do modern audiences care about Dr. Loomis? It's been years and years since we've had him in the show or in a movie outside of the Rob Zombie 2 films. And that wasn't quite the Loomis that I'm referring to with this show, or that I think anyone would create a show around.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've obviously for new fans of the series, we saw Loomis in Kills, but it was flashback scenes. It wasn't exploring him really at all. He was just there for a very short period of time in the flashback scenes. But we haven't got much of Loomis realistically since H2O. We had that introduction of the show where we saw that that Michael in the beginning parts of the movie went to Marion Chambers' house, and he tore apart her office that was Dr. Loomis's, whether Dr. Loomis lived there or it was just all his shit or whatever. But you get sort of a little bit of the background of Dr. Loomis, but otherwise you're going back to Halloween 6, so 1995, and that's a long time to go without having such a major character. And something that you could do would be to, if you wanted to do it in sort of a flashback sense, you could start it out where Dr. Loomis is on his deathbed. He's writing his memoirs of his life and his work in psychology. But there was this one patient that just consumed him. And start him out where he's very normal. He's got a wife. He's got kids. The white picket fence with the 2 dogs in the front yard, and have him be that. But then, as he meets Michael, he becomes consumed by Michael. He becomes consumed by this idea that there's something so evil with this kid and his life, as you said, this descent into madness, and pretty soon you see this spiral out of control, and he loses his wife or to his family, to his obsession and to his work, and that's really the way that I picture Dr. Loomis in many ways. That there's always these ideas of new movies coming out and somebody following one of Loomis's children into their work and following up on kind of the Loomis story. And that's great. I like that idea. But I picture Loomis, if I was to write something like this, Loomis would be sort of one of those kind of shitty dad characters. Like maybe he was good at the beginning, but then he lost touch with everything that was going on and he just spiraled out of control. Maybe he became an alcoholic and started drinking and whatever that might be, because by the time we see him in Halloween 5, The Curse of Michael Myers, he is a madman. I mean, I think that was the peak of crazy Loomis. He was a great character, but that was the peak of crazy Loomis, screaming in a kid's face and like grabbing her and shaking her, and then when we obviously see him then what did I say? I'm sorry. The Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers is where we see him as the madman. And then by the time we get to The Curse of Michael Myers, part 6, that is where you see the downward slide. And he's still off his rocker, but not as he is in The Revenge of Michael Myers, where he's grabbing the character of Jamie Lloyd and just shaking the shit out of her and being just this wild-eyed, crazy maniac. So that could be really cool to explore that idea where it's almost him telling his life story in the memoir. And who knows, maybe at the end you get him being whacked by Michael. Like that's how the series ends, is him getting fucking shanked,
Yeah, I would love that. I think it would be really great, and I love the idea of like him basically having his life all figured out. I mean, he's in a high paying job, he's doing well, he's got kids, he's happy, and then I think his character could really be one of the biggest tragedies in the story of Halloween, and not to say it isn't already, but I think it is something worth fleshing out. And like I said, this is ideally what I want.
Sure. I can totally see that. I will agree with you that this is probably the one that I would want the most. However, the next one that we're going to talk about is might be tied, or it's a close. It might be tied. It might be my most favorite idea. It might be my second most favorite idea. But taking and I think this is what we just talked about is very realistic. I think they can make that. But I think if you wanted to go after a certain audience, and that's probably that 18 to 35, 40-year-old range, right? If you want to go after that audience, the way to do that is to do it how they did with the Scream television series that was on MTV, and to aim at not necessarily a young adult. I mean, it could be capture some young adult kind of themes, but to capture the young audience and take it into sort of this new retro, very cool, very hip series like they did with Scream, and change some of the ideas of what happened in Scream and kind of give it a whole new life. And you could base it, there were the 3 books by Kelly O'Rourke that were written back in the 90s that were based on the young adult series. They were kind of going for like the, at the time, Fear Street by R.L. Stine. That was a big series. I remember when I was growing up as a kid, as a young adult myself, I read a lot of those books. Whoever at some point, whether it was, somebody took part in saying, hey, we gotta follow what R.L. Stine is doing here. There were actually, I didn't realize this, but I just found this out recently. There were Friday the 13th young adult books, and also Nightmare on Elm Street young adult books. So, and those had come out before the Halloween books came out, the Kelly O'Rourke books. So there was, at one point in time, there was this idea that they were going to take this into a new direction with this young adult book series. I think you could do something there too, where maybe every season is a different sort of, not necessarily timeline, but just a different story, where it's not, you're not having that you're not following the same characters from season to season to season. But it would capture the idea like they did with Scream and make that a kind of a young adult series, and where they're kind of writing off the older group of people. Obviously, this would not be a kid-friendly series, but you're essentially writing off everybody over the age of like 45, and that's not your target audience. You're shooting for that high school, to late 30s kind of group. So, what's your thoughts with that one?
As sad as it is that some of the ideas that we've loved for so long could maybe get poo-pooed or reinvented for this new show. The idea of kids and young people being being obsessed with Michael Myers again, like we are, is something that I think I would be selfish to not want. I want this series, and I want there to be fans of Michael Myers that maybe they start off with this series that's sort of a reinvention, reboot it, make it teen, young adult friendly, like you're saying. Maybe it doesn't capture quite what we love about the series, but it appeals enough to the younger generation that they are so enveloped in this character of Michael Myers that they'll go back and rewatch all the older movies and fall in love with it just like we have. I think there is a really tough balance there, because I think of movies like H2O. We've talked about how it's very Scream-esque, but that's what they did to appeal to the newer generation of horror fans. And even though there are some issues that we might have when things get switched to appeal to a new target audience, it's kind of what keeps things fresh and exciting and interesting. And any reinvention of the character, it's not like the old movies are going anywhere. Those will exist forever. But I as sad as it might be to see some things get dumbed down or to become a little more, 2023, whatever, I'm still down for it. And probably, just like I think The Curse is maybe the most unrealistic, or sorry, the Thorn story would be the most unrealistic. I think this would probably be the most realistic TV show that we would see coming out for Halloween. And I am positive that they're kicking around that idea somewhere in a Hollywood studio right now.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a great point that if they were going to do a series, there has to be a purpose behind the series. It's not just to appease Halloween fans, because true Halloween fans like you and I, we're going to watch whatever they do, right? They could put Michael on a cruise ship and we're going to freaking watch Michael murder people on a cruise ship, right? But they need to try to reel in a whole new audience, especially after what they just did, right? They freaking destroyed Michael Myers. He is gone. He is dead. There is no coming back from that. So how do they light a new fire in the series? Well, that is to introduce a whole new group of people to it. And that's that younger audience. That's those young adults, the teenagers, and pull them in, so that now you've set the hook, or you've maybe baited the hook, and you've got the bait in the water. You're hoping that these young adults or teenagers come and they take a bite, and you can set the hook. Well, now if you run a series that lasts 2 or 3 seasons, maybe you have a year or two in between that. Now you introduce a new Halloween movie. You have still that group of people who, like you and I, will go to anything, but now you have this whole new group as well that's been introduced, and they would have to take some liberties. They would have to change some of what we know as the franchise, because it's funny. I was just watching the other morning. I was watching The Video Dead, which is a 1980s zombie movie, and I was laughing to myself while I was watching it, because I was just like, man, how the hell did people believe? Like, how did anybody get scared by this? How did anybody believe this? Horror movies have come so far throughout the last 40, 50 years. Totally. That the scares have changed, right? I mean, what scared people back then doesn't scare people now, with the exception of a few movies, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, things like that. Some of those real, true, hardcore classic horror movies. But when you take a movie like the Video Dead, it doesn't do it, right? I mean, people are not going to be scared by that anymore. So find a new way to make the series hip, make it new, introduce some different ideas that, maybe some of the more hardcore fans are not going to like. It might be very similar to like the Ends idea, where they are thinking outside the box. They're having to introduce some new characters that are changing the road that we're traveling in this series. But do that, set the hook, and now it allows us to line up new movies in the future where you can start to maybe reinvent the wheel a little bit and bring Michael back to the big screen. So I think as a hardcore fan, the Loomis idea of following Loomis and maybe his memoirs or whatever that looks like, as a hardcore fan, that is what I probably would want to see. But I do think that the young adult would be the way to go with this, even though I wouldn't necessarily agree with some of the changes that they may have to make in order to introduce a new audience.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head. It's sort of, if you want this series to go on, you can't rehash everything. I think there's some great pieces in the story that they'd be able to weave into a multi-season platform. So you would still get that fan service, but there are a lot of things that guys like us would have to let go and allow those liberties to be taken, and just accept this isn't our Halloween story anymore. It can appeal to us as well, but we do have to keep this thing moving. And again, we are Halloween Lives. It's what we want.
Right. Well, and you might even have to introduce, like, the show might have to be about Laurie Strode, like a new version of Laurie Strode. Like, forget what Jamie Lee Curtis did, right? Forget Scout Taylor Compton. This is a new Laurie Strode. This is a new Laurie, a new Annie, a new Linda, whatever that looks like. Change the characters, but maybe it would be Laurie Strode present day, but now she's a 16-year-old girl or 17-year-old girl, and do something like that. So again, you'd piss off a lot of the hardcore true fans, and they'd say, well, you can't do that. Laurie Strode is, Jamie Lee Curtis is Laurie Strode. Yep. But I would understand why they're doing what they're doing. So it's just an idea. And like you said, I guarantee you there is somebody in some studio at Trancas or wherever it is, they're kicking around this idea. And I really think, as we talked about with Matt when he was on the program, I think I have to believe that Malik Akkad is going to be watching this new Crystal Lake series very, very closely. He's going to want to see how fans react to that, if it's popular, and they're going to be a little bit of the test dummies, but I think it's going to be very popular. And I won't be shocked if after maybe 1 or 2 seasons of this Crystal Lake show, they announce a Halloween series, which I think would be great for us as horror fans.
We could be re-entering like the early 2010 remake era with TV shows. We could see a Freddy Krueger TV show. We could see a Leatherface TV show. I mean, if Crystal Lake works out, like you said, we're kind of in for the new trend, and I'm cool with it, because the long form content gives you something to kind of watch week by week, and I'm pumped. Just put the series or the season finale on Halloween. I think that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that'd be the way to do it. No, so those are our ideas. We know nothing more than anybody else out there about what the plan is, the long-term plan, but we did want to just throw these ideas out there. It's fun to think about. It's fun to imagine what this could look like. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you guys think. And if you have some really cool idea, throw it out there. We can talk about it on one of the upcoming episodes about what they could potentially do with the series and what that would look like.
Yeah, if there were ever an episode, if you're I tend to be kind of a lurker on some of my favorite YouTube channels or podcasts or whatever. If there were ever an episode to just kind of throw out an idea, we're gonna read it. And let me tell you, this kind of stuff I love to read. So give us whatever you're thinking about. There's no wrong ideas. Like you said, nobody knows what's coming next.
Absolutely. And so we've covered that. One of the conversations that Austin and I talked about, and how to keep the show fresh and new, and different things that we can do with it to introduce some new ideas and not just be another podcast that's out there, is, and it was Austin's idea 100%, is introducing essentially like a fan of the week or a collector of the week, and what that looks like. So Austin, I'll let you talk about that a little bit. And obviously we are going to show a few images here in just a minute, but for those of you listening versus watching, if you do want to actually see what we're talking about, check us out on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, obviously subscribe, but you are going to be showing a few photos as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason I wanted to bring this into the show is I'm part of, and I know you are too, but we're part of these like fan groups on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything, and there's always such cool either independent creations or incredible collections, or like we've talked about with fan films. There's this community is incredibly creative and incredibly diehard, and I think that deserves a spotlight more than, you know, maybe they would give themselves with just, hey, here's my collection, check it out on Instagram. So today I want to talk about this is a mask created by fan of the series Logan Weapon X on Facebook. And what he did is so badass, dude. It is
awesome. So cool.
He took a Trick or Treat Studios 1978 mask, and then here's the part where it, like, I don't know how he did this. So on the left side there, you can see there's sort of it's definitely not clay because that wouldn't work with latex. I'm so interested. And I've reached out to Logan on Facebook before, so I can probably ask him, but I'm so interested to see how that was built up. But there's sort of this clay creation, and he's got sort of an unmasked Jason figure. And then he cuts a blank Friday hockey mask, creates leather straps, and all of a sudden you've got half Michael, half Jason on one mask, and it is absolutely badass, dude. I think he's kind of got like a part 3 Jason going on the right side, and obviously the classic 1978 Michael on the left side. But I saw this, and we had been talking about doing this new sort of segment of the show, and I was like, damn, I don't know a better thing to bring out first than this. And I think it's badass, dude. I love everything that he's got going on here. And I bet it is the perfect display piece for fans like us that love both the Halloween franchise and the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah, dude. Awesome job, Logan. This is super cool. And I've never actually seen anything like this, which is cool because there's been so many masks and different variations of, different stuff that's been created, merchandise, if you will, of the series. And seeing this this mashup is really cool. I mean, he clearly put a lot of time and energy into this, and I'm sure, based on the reaction that I know you and I have seen that Logan got from this, as far as people being excited about it, I'm sure people are reaching out to him and saying, hey, can you do this for me? Can you make me one? Because like I was even just thinking as you were talking, how cool would it be to actually have like a full costume where half is Michael, half is Jason, and have a butcher knife in one hand and a machete in the other, and go to like a con. And,
oh my God. Yeah.
That would be badass, dude. And so this is super cool. I don't know if he's planning on making more of these and selling them, but Logan, dude, I have to tell you, you have something super cool here, and I think you definitely could. I mean, there's no question there are collectors out there, especially or super fans like Austin and I of Halloween and Friday the 13th. I mean, we talk about Halloween a lot, but we also love Jason and we love Friday the 13th. It's no question my second favorite slasher series.
Totally.
So to see this mashup is, yeah, he did a freaking awesome job, and I'd love to have one of these myself.
Oh, dude, I'd love to have like a horror room where I've got Michael Myers stuff on one side, Jason stuff on the other, and this would be the centerpiece, kind of the dividing line. I think it's so badass, dude. And yeah, Logan, you knocked it out of the park. Thanks for letting us show your work off on the show, and sort of be our first guest or our first segment here.
Fan of the week, we plan on doing this fan of the week or super fan of the week or whatever you want to call it. I just think it is cool to look at some collections or some things that people are doing. I mean, there are people out there who have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on collecting Halloween franchise, merchandise or memorabilia. And, as you can see, both of us have shit on our walls and we display stuff, but this is nothing compared to what some people have done. So yeah, we do want to feature some of these people. So if you're interested in that, again, hit us up, reach out, let us know that you'd like to be considered for this. And eventually we're going to, we'll get to a lot of different people if we do this on a weekly basis. But yeah, Logan, good job, dude. That is badass. If you want to make one for Austin and I, we'll both take them. We'll send you our addresses, whatever it is. And, we'll throw them in the background here, because it is freaking sweet.
No, it is so badass. And I've got a great one coming up next week. Already reached out to the guy, and it is really incredible. Like you're saying, the amount of time and dedication that these fans have to getting everything Michael Myers. And I think I've got a good collection, maybe the best collection I've ever seen, coming up next week. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's sort of the new segment. Yeah, I don't know what we want to call it, the super fan, the whatever. But we do want to shine a spotlight on some of the people like us that love this franchise and are building something on top of it, just like we are. So yeah, again, Logan, thanks for letting us show that off. Incredible work. And yeah, like Blaine said, if you feel like just in your free time building a couple more, just, send them our way,
Yeah. We'll give you the address. We can make that happen. Yeah,
exactly.
No, it's a great idea, man. And, that wraps up episode 7. I can't believe we're already at episode 7. Thank you again to everybody who has subscribed, everybody who's followed us. We cannot thank you guys enough. Again, this is, it's happening naturally. We're doing our best to stay on top of things and to reach out to people when they comment or like or whatever it might be. So thank you so much to those of you who have subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, the bell for notifications, give us a like, whatever it might be. We're just happy to be doing this. And we have some awesome shows that are coming up. We have secured some guests who are going to be coming on the show in the future coming weeks. Guests that were part of different movies throughout the series. It's going to be badass. That's all I can say. You definitely want to subscribe. You definitely want to tune in, because it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't believe I am living the life I am living now because of this podcast. It's just badass. And again, thank you to the people who are giving us credibility by watching our show and liking and commenting and subscribing. I mean, it can't get better without you. And I can't appreciate it enough. I know Blaine and I spend a lot of time texting each other going, wow, this was so cool. Look what somebody said, or look at us. We're at 70 subscribers. I mean, it is, at the very least, you are making two brothers very, very happy and keeping our texts frequent and going. So keep a family together. Subscribe.
Right. It's the only bond, the only link between us and I that's keeping us together. Otherwise, we'd hate each other. Exactly. No, I'm just kidding. So thank you guys for watching or listening, whatever it is. This is Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. We are the only podcast out there that is covering Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise on a weekly basis. We're not going to be stopping. We're not going anywhere. The train has left the station, and everybody better get on board, because we're going to keep rocking this thing. So thank you once again for listening, for watching. I'm Blaine Duncan. That is my brother, Austin. Thank you guys so much once again, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.